Alright, we got a 2012 Nissan Altima here. We're going to be replacing this CVT transmission, and there appears to be a lot of trouble with these transmissions. I don't know. This one's stuck in second gear. I don't know how many times I've heard of other Altimas having the exact same thing. But basically we're just going to be going and replacing it. Somebody had already worked on this and tried to replace some stuff. But we're going to be just replacing it. We're going to get started getting the fluid drained and everything. Okay, so very first thing, we got the rear wheels chalked here. Okay, we've got a 21 millimeter. Going to go ahead and get started on these lugs, breaking them loose. Okay, I just want to show you where we got the jack positioned here. And you could, position it somewhere under the control arm or elsewhere. We're going to put a jack stand right along that right there. But we're going to go ahead and lift it up momentarily here. Okay, so we're going to remove the wheel momentarily. I know this is going to seem counterproductive, but we've got to get this center cap out before we proceed. So we're going to take these lugs off, and we're just going to put a couple of them back on and put the weight back on onto the vehicle or the tire. Okay, now we can go ahead and get the wheel off for a moment. Okay, with the wheel off, you can see this center cap, and usually these will just pop out pretty easy. So now we're going to go ahead and put the wheel back on. Okay, so I've just got a couple of lug nuts here. We're not going to put them all back. This will be sufficient. So just snug it up a little bit. Alright, now we're just going to go ahead and lower the weight of the vehicle back down. Okay, so we got the wheel back off. We forgot to get the Cotter pin out here. That is the very first thing before putting the wheel back. So we're just going to bend this as straight as we can possibly get it and tap it out there. Sometimes you have to take a hammer to get these out. This one here is like really hard to straighten, but just about got it. Okay, there it finally came out. Okay, so we got the wheel back on again. We're going to go ahead and lower the weight onto the wheel. Okay, so a 32 millimeter or an 1.25 inches, either one should get the job done. Okay, and here's my setup. I've got a breaker bar and a cheater pipe. They're about 3 foot, a little over 3 foot. Okay, so the rear tires are chocked, so we'll go ahead and that was very, very easy to get loose. A lot easier than I thought it would be. So, and now it's just pretty much you could take it loose by hand here. So I'm going to go ahead and lift the vehicle back up at this point, and we'll get our jack stand or block in place. Okay, so we got our jack stand, and we're just going to leave the jack in place. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and finish removing this axle nut here, and we'll go ahead and get the wheel back off and proceed on from there. So there's that. Has a nice shoulder on the nut part. So we'll go ahead and get these two lugs out and get the tire off. Okay, very first thing we're going to focus on is seeing if this is going to be stuck in the knuckle, and this is usually the biggest obstacle. I'm going to start by spraying some spray lubricant in there. Okay, my next plan of attack, I like to use, this is just a puller kit, I like to use this right here just to start with. Okay, so we're going to use this, we're just going to center it right up there, and I got me a shot filled rubber mallet. We've sprayed it with lubricant, so we're going to see if it's going to move. And there we go, it actually moved, so that's a very good thing. I just wanted to point out that oftentimes this will be your biggest battle, more especially if you live in an area and you got a lot of salt corrosion and rust. These love to seize up, so if this moves, then it's going to be pretty simple from there. Okay, the next thing I'm going to get on is this brake line, this clip here. And usually I just take a pry bar or something and just kind of, don't get on your brake line, but knock this thing, or I'll hit it with the rubber mallet in this manner until I can knock that clip off of there, because sometimes they are pretty stuck. Okay, it's just hitting the end of this with my rubber mallet. And now that will just kind of push back a little bit, and then just pull it right out. Okay, the next thing we're going to get, we got a 10mm right here for this ABS wire. Sometimes you have to pry these out with a screwdriver or put a little spray lubricant if they're stuck. This appears to be coming out real easy. We'll just put that screw back. Okay, now we're going to get some wire. We're going to wire this whole entire brake caliper up. Now we've got a 22 up here, and we got one down on the bottom as well. I'll be using this little extension, my extended handle ratchet. We're just going to go ahead and get back here and break this loose. This will be pretty tight. Okay, so we still don't have it loose just yet. Okay, so that was pretty tight. It gave a pop when I got it loose. We're going to get on the lower one now. Okay, so now we're on this lower one. 22. So once they come loose, they spin out of there real easy. So I'm going to go ahead and get my wire. Completely remove this lower bracket bolt. Okay, and there's a look at that bolt, and I will say that it's one of the more heavy-duty bolts that I've seen, so Nissan's doing a good job on these brakes. Okay, now we're just going to finish removing this upper one here. Okay, now I've got a hand on it. We're going to get some wire. Okay, we just got it set in here, and now's a good time as any to inspect your brakes and see how they're doing. And see, these don't have a lot of life left to them. Okay, so I got me some wire. Okay, we'll just go right through here. We'll wire this up on this spring. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take this rotor off. Okay, we're going to get to work on this strut, the knuckle. We got a 21 nut on this side. This is the side we're going to loosen from, and we're going to take a 21, we're going to hold it over here while we're getting this loose. So let's see how tight this is going to be. And sometimes these will be splined and you don't have to hold them. In this case they are not. Just going to completely remove the nut side first, and then we'll get on that lower one there. Okay, so go ahead and finish removing that. And we'll go ahead, and this bolt's actually going to slide right out, no problem. We'll go ahead and get on this lower one. The same thing, we'll hold it on this one side while we're getting this loose. And these are usually really tight. I'm surprised that I'm not getting my breaker bar out for these. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing, and we're going to get this lower bolt out and we'll slide it out here. Okay, so I'm about to finish slipping this bolt out. I'm going to have to support this knuckle where it's going to want to fall. Okay, so while I'm working this out of here, I'm going to push on the CV and push it back. So I'm pushing it back, and I'm going to get my hand back here and kind of support that. So you can see here we got to push down a little bit and pop it out. Push that back. Just grab your hand right back there and pop it right out. Okay, so we got my 3-foot crowbar here. Okay, so we're gonna get this crowbar hook back in here behind this, and this has never failed to work for me as of yet. And we're just gonna rock that right there. And usually it just depends on the car. Some of these are hard, and some of them aren't too bad. So we'll just rock it a little bit here, right on that edge. Okay, I think I've got it loose. I'm just kind of hung up here with my crowbar. Okay, so there we have it loose. Now we're going to have to get a drip pan down here. Very important to have the drip pan, and you will lose a little bit of fluid, but usually not a lot. And just refill exactly what you drain out, if it's any significant amount. Okay, I wanted to show you from this side where I was coming through and just getting that hook right back there. And it didn't take much at all to pop it out of there. So I'm getting ready to go up in there now, and I'm just going to finish pulling it out by hand here. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to try not to get my arm right in the way. And we've got a little bit of fluid coming out there. Said I will show you where you'll need to refill that. And I'm just going to point out in the video right now that this is not regular transmission fluid. You want CVT fluid only. Okay, we're going to go ahead and wiggle this knuckle, get this bolt, and we're going to get a hand on this. We're going to have to push this down slightly. We're going to push in on the CV axle. Okay, so here we go. We're going to push down on that. We're pushing back. Reach back here. And there we have it. Okay, for this next part, we got a lot of stuff in the way, so I have to show you. We got to come up in here. We've got a 13mm that you see right there. And then on the bottom, got one right there as well. I believe there might possibly be another one on this other side, but I'm not 100% sure. So we're going to start with those, and that one right there. Okay, I've got a real long extension here. It's about 3 foot long. If I can get you in here. Alright, let's try. Let's see if that's any better. Okay, this is really not very tight. You want to utilize a magnet to get this out. Got that top one loose. Let's get on this bottom one. And it's really very easy to get to these. So I'm using a real long extension. And if it drops under there, it doesn't matter. I can go get it. I just don't want it rolling off and losing it. So now I'm going to get on this upper one. Okay. Now with these two out, we should be able just to pull this out of here. Now we're going to have our drip pan in place. Okay, so here's our drip pan. Okay, and you can see where it's located going in to that transmission. Now the only thing you just want to be cautious, pull it out straight so you're not damaging the seal up there. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get where I can start pulling on this. Okay, so we're going to see how this is going to look. And we're going to start. Usually, okay, now that fell because it's a little split piece, but you can see that it's easily pulling out. I'm just carefully pulling it so I don't damage that seal. Now you will lose some CVT fluid, and you know, it's usually a good idea if you haven't changed it in a while to go ahead and just drain the fluid out and put back whatever you drain out. Sometimes it's like maybe 4 quarts, but you really need to keep that CVT fluid changed. Okay, so here it is all laid out here, and you can see that little split washer or whatever bracket piece that goes on there. Wasn't planning on that falling off. I thought it was going to be a piece that went around the unit, but it's a little split piece, so it actually makes it easier to remove. Okay, so we got the CV axles out. We're just going to switch over to working under the hood, start removing some things here now. Okay, we got a couple of tins holding this piece on each side. One down at the other end over here. Let's go ahead and get these out and remove this piece. Okay, now we can just lift this piece up and out of here. Just put that aside. And go ahead and put your screws back where they go so they're not getting lost. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get on our battery. And get on that nut right there. Okay, well now I got a tin. We're going to get on this brace. Usually you can unhook these once they get loosened up a little bit. And just pull the whole thing up. We'll see. Okay, so I just took those completely off, and just got one right here that we may just leave that as a part of that. Okay, so we're just going to remove this from this piece right here, and we'll just put that. So we'll just leave that. Okay, so I'm just getting ready to lift the battery out here now. Alright, just getting this little tray out. Okay, next thing up, we're going to get on this air box, start removing this. We've got clips running these wires. Just push those in with your fingers or get a screwdriver, and you should be able to poke those back. If you just go to prying on it, a lot of times you'll break them, so it's best to just push them and bend them back in where you can get it to push through there. Just like that. So go ahead and get this connector. And sometimes you got to push down. Okay, we're going to have to get a pick tool. Looks like that one's stuck. Okay, and these pick tools are really invaluable. You get under here and find the clip, and you can usually pop it loose, and that'll keep you from breaking it. I'm yet to find where it's clipped though. Okay, so there we got it. Okay, so we get on this band. It's an 8mm. And we'll go ahead and just loosen this up right here, I guess. Okay, scratch that. We're going to take it loose over here because it's way too stuck. I think we can get it off the valve cover easier. Yep. Okay, back over here behind the air box, we got a 10 we need to get loose. Okay, so there's that one. Okay, so we're going to start pulling it loose, and we should be able to pop this unit up. Okay, so there's the whole air box out of the way. Okay, and what I'm starting to notice is how similar this is to the car, the Murano I had recently, with this whole battery tray, and you got the computer and everything. So I'm basically going to start taking these bolts out here and all these, and we're going to get the computer and just set it back over here on the engine once we're able to get the wires loose. Of course, we got wires running in this box, but then we're going to start with these. Okay, so I'll probably just start with the computer. These are actually pretty tight for a little 13mm bolt. So there's 4 of these that are running around this whole odd looking brace, and then you got the last one over here, and you want to definitely keep track, put your bolts back where they go, or you will get them mixed up. Okay, now I'm going to get the other bolts in the tray. So we got one here, here, and here. And it seems like, if I'm remembering right, there may be some underneath. I hope I'm wrong on that. We'll find out in just a second. We got one more right here. So I'm going to go ahead and get these out. Okay, we're getting ready to move this tray. This right here is clipped on, You take a pick tool, you should be able to lift up on that. Give that a tug. Okay, so there we have that freed up. Okay, we're going to get in this fuse box, just lift up on that. It should. Okay, and then push in on that. Okay, I'm going about this the wrong way. I'm actually going to be pushing in right here and removing these connectors. And it's a good idea to start labeling so you're not getting anything mixed up. Okay, so we just like that. Okay, with those loose, I think we're going to start unclipping this. Just pull back on that. We're going to try to free up some slack. So just pull those and that should unclip. We can move that wire. It's a good idea to mark where things clip as well. Okay, now you notice that this wire is running into the box and then it's running around here. You see that 10 millimeter, and it runs right around here, connects into the computer right here. So we're going to try to disconnect that. First thing, you got to push in on this with that pick tool, and this will slide right up and off of this brace. You can see that clip. Push in on that with a screwdriver or something. I can just almost get it with my fingernail there, but anyways, that's what we need to do. And then pull that up and off of there. Okay, now we're just getting this 10 off of this brace right here. You can see how we got that wire freed up. Okay, these clips are pretty easy. I'm going to be going for this bottom one, but just to show you better, you just push on that with your fingernail and then you can fold that up. So that's what you do. I'm going to be going at this bottom one here. I may have to remove the one above it though, it looks like, to be able to get to this. I'm probably going to have to remove these others as well. Okay, so I'm just going through getting these others here, and I'm just going to label them as I go. And we also got one over here to the side. We're going to go ahead and get that and mark it as well. Okay, with those loose, we should be able to get a hold of this and I believe lift this out of here. It's just our computer box and then that bracket that runs around it. Okay, with that out of the way, we can go ahead and lift this part of this battery tray. And here's the mount below. We're going to get this out of the way as well. It's got, looks like a bolt on either side there. Okay, this part of this harness has a couple of 10 millimeters going right into this brace right here. I'm going to go ahead and try to get at these. Okay, because of the limited clearance here, I'm having to go underneath with a ratchet wrench to get this other 10. There's those out, and now we have this here freed up from this. Okay, so now we're going to get over here on these 13s on each side here. Okay, so we're getting on the rear one here. I just knocked my little hook out. It's coming pretty easy once I've got it loose there. See how hard this other side's going to be to get to. Pretty easy on this side as well. Okay, so I'll just finish getting these out here with my fingers. There's that one. Okay, so there's both of those. Now we can reach and get this out of the way. Just going to put these bolts back. Okay, so we made some pretty good progress. We got this loose. We can pretty much just push this over here out of the way. And this wire is loose. It's not going to be a problem. I think we may go ahead at this point and get on our starter here. Okay, this wire, the starter wire's got a 12 millimeter. For this big wire. Slip that off of there. Push that back out of the way. Okay, and then we've got this right here, a 10 millimeter on this small one that you see here. Actually, I was incorrect. It's going to be an 8. Okay, let's try this again. We're going to work on getting some of this wiring loose. Okay, and that broke. We got this connector right here. Going to push down. Get right off the transmission. Got another connector right here. Okay, actually got that one out without breaking it. Okay, this main connector you see down here, real easy. You're just going to twist it counterclockwise. Comes right off there, just as easy as that. So now we got this wiring here loose, and we'll pull it back over towards the engine. Okay, we're going to get on this shift cable. Got a 13. Notice how it's like square, the way it fits in there. Back here we just got a clip we need to pop up. Just careful, don't lose it. Okay, we finally getting it here. So it just goes down on there like that. You see the groove. Just push that back. So now we got that loose. Got a connector right here we need to get. some of these really stick over time. Okay, so there we have it. And it's also clipped to this bracket. It has a little clip. We're going to have to pop that clip up and then it'll come back around here. Okay, so now we should be able to pull this around here. And we will feed this back up behind this hose and get that out of the way. Okay, these wires over here, one was clipped here, and this one here, I'm going to remove it from this bracket simply by pushing in on that band and just popping this up. I think it's going to be the easiest way. It will unclip as well, but I can just do that right there. Okay, as you can see, we got the majority of everything. We got the wire, this battery bracket. Now the coolant hoses, you know, we could drain the coolant and pop these loose, but that's just going to be more work, so, and it's not necessary. We can get to these bolts underneath down here, I think, without having to mess with those. Now I am going to take probably this brace here off, and we're going to need to probably take this safety switch off, but may not even have to remove that. I think I can just get away with taking this here loose. So I've got a 13 here. I'm going to take these two bolts holding this brace loose. Okay, now it's got the vent tube connected right here. We want to pop that connector off right there. So if you can get on the back side, it's easier to push them through without breaking them. Okay, so like I said, we're trying to get all of the connections that we can for now. Now here is our lines. Have those banjo bolts or whatever, and we're going to be removing them at the transmission there. But not just yet. I was wanting to show you this connector. There's one more connector that runs right back here. I'm going to reach back there and push on that. See if we can't get that loose. And I'm going to go ahead and lay. All these have been really stuck. The dust and dirt makes them really difficult to get loose. But that's the only other one I'm seeing for now. I think we got everything else that we need to get from up here right now, so we're going to switch over to working on the subframe next. Okay, this is where we just set it on blocks after we moved the jacks from getting the CV axles out, and just had the jack stand. What I'm going to be doing is just lifting this up like another 8 inches or so we can get enough room to get underneath and do what we need to do. So we're just going to go on both sides, just get this lifted up. Now also had put this knuckle back here because we're actually going to be leaving that and popping it loose down here at this ball joint to separate the control arm. Okay, so I changed my setup a little bit. I've got the bigger jack stands here at the back now in the blocks. Okay, so we got a 19 millimeter. I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of this CVT fluid out. And you could do this first if you wanted to. It actually doesn't look real bad. They probably tried to change it and thought that would help the transmission, but the fluid doesn't look bad. And I like to drain this all up and just pour it up in a jug and see how much I got. That way I know kind of what to start with when I'm putting it back, and then, you know, of course we'll check it from there. Okay, we got our 18 on this side. We're going to break it loose, but we're also going to hold it on this other side. Okay, so we're going to get over here with just a wrench, 18 millimeter, hold it while we're turn it on this other side over here. Okay, now a lot of times these don't come out real easy, so what you'll want to do is actually put this on here flush and get a rubber mallet or something. Okay, I'm just going to put this on here to make it easier, and we're just going to hit this. Alright, so we got it loose. We'll just back it off a little more. So that should come out of there pretty easy. Okay, so we'll see if we can't finish pulling this out here. It's still pretty stuck. I have to get a screwdriver here. Look, I just put the 18 on there. I was hitting it with my hammer. And there we have it. Just want to be careful that you don't mess the threads up. Okay, so we just got a big long crowbar. We're going to start pushing down on that, and you can see it's moving it. See, we're just hooked back in there on that subframe with the crowbar end. Just got to kind of turn that way and pushing down. So we watch this. We'll push this down until we get it to the point to where it's going to pop completely out, and then we'll pull this back. So we just almost got it here, a little bit farther. Okay, and there we have it. You can see now that's fine where we got it here. We just mainly want it loose, so when we start dropping the subframe, we're going to have to do this on both sides, by the way. Okay, now we're going to take this 18 and we're going to get on this stabilizer link here, and we're going to pop it loose up here just because it's easier to get to the top one. Okay, and then we'll just push that back through. Alright, so we're down here on the tie rod. We got to get this cotter pin here. Okay, well, so it helps if you can get them straight. This may take a minute. If you can grab that eyelet in and hit it, it helps. Okay, this here is going to be a 19. Okay, and you should have a nut and a washer. Now, to pop this off, we're going to have to be delicate. We're probably going to go ahead and just put this down flush, just like we did. Yeah, now this doesn't have a shoulder on the nut, so unless I go dig one of those up, I'm going to have to hit it directly on the end here. I'm going to start with my rubber mallet. Let's see if I can have any success with it first. Okay, I'm going to switch over to a regular hammer without getting too rough. I want that flush. Alright. So, as long as you don't have to get too rough with it, it should be fine. And that popped out of there actually pretty easy. Now I've got a tie rod tool, and I've actually bent these things in with it because you got the hole for the cotter pin. It kind of weakens that, and I have bent those. Okay, so we'll just put this back on here. So we'll just do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll proceed on to the next step. Okay, so I got my 3-foot extension. We got a 12 millimeter. We're fixing to go in here and take the bolt out of this steering column. Okay, so on this driver's side here, we're going to come right up in there and get that bolt. Okay, so we should be able to get to this pretty easy. And I had to turn that steering wheel a little bit there. Okay, I still don't have it loose. Okay, there we have it. Just going to completely remove that. And you could go ahead and push that collar up once you have this bolt out, or you can just leave it there. Now we're still going to have to get our lines that are running to this. We're going to have to get that disconnected, but we're going to wait on that. Okay, so there we have that bolt out. Okay, next thing we're going to get on this exhaust. We've got some 16 millimeter nuts here, and we've also got one on this side right here. So we're going to go ahead and start taking these loose. You'll want a extended handle ratchet, and these are going to be very tight. And if you're lucky, you won't break any of these studs off. Now I previously put a little WD-40 on each one of these, so hopefully they're not going to give me a lot of trouble. But the longer you let that penetrating oil soak, the better. So spray them way ahead of time and hope for the best. Okay, so we're getting the first one here. And these are self-locking nuts. So I'm going to get up here on this next one. You don't have to worry about this falling. It is attached to a brace back there. So go ahead and get this one and get on that last one. Okay, so we're just getting on the last one over here. And we'll have these up here on the front. Okay, so we got all 3 of those out. Okay, now this brace you see back here, we're going to get out of the way next. It's coming under this exhaust. There's a couple of 13s on each side here we're going to have to get loose. So we'll just start with the ones over here on this driver's side first. There's the 2 out of that side. Okay, so now we'll just get these 2 on this side, and we'll take this brace completely down. Okay, we're just putting these back, or we'll never remember where all these bolts go. Okay, and these are going to be really tight. These are, like I said, 16s as well. Getting the one on the left, we'll get over on that other side. So I sprayed these down like 24 hours in advance, and they're still pretty tough. Okay, so one down. One more to go here. Okay, so we got those 2 without breaking it, actually. Okay, right here we've got a bracket that comes back here to the frame, the main body mount, or the subframe bolt. So while we're here at this and they're handy, we're going to go ahead and take these 4 out, and we're going to do it on this side here as well. Okay, so we'll just start getting on these on the passenger side here. So sometimes it's just good to get stuff while it's handy. Okay, so there's that 16mm bolt. Just got 3 more here. Okay, just 2 more on this one. Again, I'm using my extended ratchet. Everything has been pretty snug. Okay, so we got those 4 bolts on each side loose. We're going to go ahead and disconnect this O2 sensor. Now it's clipped on here, as you can see, but if you press on this part up here, we should be able to pull that out. But we're going to have to... Okay, I had to wind up using my pick tool. Like most of these connectors, they've really been stuck, and those little clips just want to give out. So you got to go up in there with a pick tool, like so, and kind of work it loose. So anyways, we got that O2 sensor loose. The only thing we have left is we've got these 2 13s right here. We're going to take loose. And then we're just going to drop. Basically, we'll pop this down, and this will pull out from down here, and we'll just set this section out of the way. Okay, so we're just finished removing these, and you'll definitely want to get a hand on it, because it's going to, once you pull this flex pipe down here off of these studs, it's going to come down. Alright, so I'm just setting it down here. Okay, so here's this big piece out of the way. We're just going to set it aside. You can see how it gives you the room to get in here to your flex plate and everything. And now we can go ahead and work on, we've got a motor mount right here. Probably might as well go ahead and get on that next. Okay, so we got a 18. We're going to get on this part right here. Okay, and that side over there is welded, so you don't have to worry about holding that. Now with this bolt out, actually, you know what? I'm getting the wrong one. Sorry. This one right here. With this one out, this will allow us to drop the subframe. I need to tighten that other one back up. It shouldn't be a problem. If it does, I can take it, the other bolt over there, loose. This one right here should be enough to get this out of here. Now I probably should have went ahead and got my flex plate bolts, because this will actually allow this engine to rock, as you can see. But I think it'll be enough out of the way. If it gives me any problems, I'll take this other part here off, but here's that bolt. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and get on these while I've got it on my mind here. We got 2 tins for this little dust cap to remove, and then we'll go ahead and take this little side flap out here, as we're going to need it off of the passenger side fender well to be able to turn our crank. And so this will just pop right off. It's got a nice seal on it, but it's kind of ate up a little bit from the oil or whatever. So now we'll go ahead and we'll go out there and turn this. Probably better go ahead and put these back so we ain't losing these. Okay, so we're going to start popping all these clips out. And we just got a couple more over here. Alright, so now we can get to our crank. Okay, I got my extended ratchet with a 19. Okay, so we're going to turn this clockwise. We'll get a hold of that first one. Okay, so we got our 14. We're going to hold the crank still. And we break this loose. And these will be pretty tight. At least at first. So this is a 14. So now we're going to turn it clockwise only. We'll get on around to that next one. Alright, now the same thing, we'll go ahead and get this one out and just move on to the next. Alright, we've got our second one out. Alright, now we're on our fourth and final 14mm bolt. Alright, so we got the flex plate free from the torque converter now. Okay, on this connector back here on the subframe, you're going to need a pick tool probably to get this loose, at least I did. And on top of that, you got to pop this connector loose. Just got one of those pesky. Okay, so actually it will slip off of there, but I probably broke it. But that's where that goes, and then it's got another one right there. So you don't want to have that connected. Go to lowering this down. Okay, the next thing up, just wanted to explain, we've got this high pressure, we got the line coming right here to the rack. Now what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect it right here at that fitting, and essentially that line runs up and over to the pump there. You see there's like a brace up there, and there's this brace here. Now we're going to disconnect this line. Now it's still got bolts going to that lower portion there, or I suppose that we could take it from the top, but it'd be harder. So we're going to take those lower bolts, which come around to the back side, and you can see those 10mm right there. So we're going to take those out after yeah, we'll probably take it out after we get the fitting up there, because then it's going to be moving too much if we don't. So we'll get a drip pan here. Don't be turning your steering wheel any until you get everything out, or fluid will be going everywhere. But we're going to go ahead and get a drip pan under here, and we're going to take that fitting loose right there. So we'll figure out what size that is. Okay, so I've got a 3/4 just holding this top part here, and then I've got a 14. We're gonna hold that, and oh, and it's really, really tight. Okay, so we had a change of plans without risk of damaging this. It's so tight, can't get that one to budge. But if you come over here to the one right here, you follow this line right up here to the rack, There's a 14 right here. Now this one here is very easy to take loose, and I broke that loose with no problem whatsoever. So we're just going to take it loose right there, and it'll be the same difference. But that one over there, for whatever reason, that fitting is messed up, and I've seen them like that before, where you'll get a messed up fitting and you'll have to replace the whole line. It's probably been cross-threaded or who knows, but you'd wind up having to replace the whole thing, just removing it. Okay, so we got that loose. We're going to get back here and get this brace. Here's the brace. Just going to get back here with a 10 and get to these. Okay, you can see that we've got those. And we're just finishing the last. Okay, so now we essentially have this loose, this line here. And we can pull that on out of the rack there. Okay, on this side now, if you push up on the clips on this white piece that's going through that square, it will just pop up off there. It's the easiest way to do it. So now we've got this line loose. We want to get something on this so it's not getting damaged as well while we're taking this out. So anyways, we got, like I said, that piece right there has a couple of little clips. You just push in on each side. It will not focus though into that square there. So that's all I was doing, and just pushed it up and off of there. So this is loose. I'm going to put something, I'm going to tape something on the end like a paper towel or something, so that's not getting damaged. Okay, we're up here by our crank pulley, and we're going to essentially disconnect this return right here. And don't plan on any of these hoses coming off easily. Alright, so I'm going to have to work on that a minute. Okay, I had to use my big pry bar to push it off there. It was really stuck. Okay, you can see that I've got my jacks placed back there where the most weight is, and they're just kind of going to be resting on that. We're going to slowly start taking these bolts out up here. These are 21 millimeters. We got 2 up here, and then we got 2 more in the back. Okay, so I've got my 21, my breaker bar here. We're going to see how difficult this is, and this wasn't too bad. Okay, so I just switched over to my ratchet here. So these are coming out pretty easy. Now I checked these beforehand. I'll mention this later, but I was getting the torque at about 110, 115 on these bolts, so that's what I'm going to put them back as. It always seems like I have trouble finding the torque specs for these. I know you don't want to overdo them, but you want them to be tight. Alright, so I'm going to just finish removing this here. It's a long bolt. Okay, so here comes that big bolt, and I want to point out that there's probably going to be some plastic pesky pieces in the way up here on yours. They've been long since removed, so you're on your own on them, but usually they're just snapped or got some 10 millimeters. So I'm going to get on the one over here on the passenger side now. Yeah, these are really not that bad. I've seen a lot worse. Alright, so I'll finish getting this, and then we'll get on those rear ones. This thing shouldn't move because I got my jacks there, but we'll keep an eye on it. Right, here comes that second bolt. And these are 21s on the front and the back. Okay, so we're back here on the back one. Now remember that we've got the 4 bolts from the brace. We got that earlier when we were getting the exhaust. So we're just going to go ahead and take these out on both sides, and we're going to start easing it down. Okay, so here's this whole brace dropped down with that bolt. So now we just got to go over to the other side and do the same thing. Alright, so getting on this passenger. Okay, so I was on the wrong bolt there again. Okay, so we got that side down. We're going to slowly start lowering this. Okay, and as I'm lowering this, I want to watch that part going to the steering column over there in particular. I don't want it hanging up. I'm just going to lower a little bit on each side. Alright, so let's see how this side's doing. If it gets hung up any, then we'll have a problem. Okay, and as I would have suspected, it's getting hung up on this piece right here, it looks like. We'll have to wiggle that off of there because the bolt is out, so it's just kind of corroded or something here. But we're going to have to get that off of there nonetheless. Now, you really can't put this back on wrong, as you notice this little blue piece here, and that's going to line it up that way. Okay, so it's still kind of hung. I'm like slowly lowering it, but the splines there kind of hung. I just kind of was tapping my rubber mallet against the control arm here. That's kind of how I've been knocking it down, and then I've kind of like been spraying it with some. This is actually one of the worst ones I've seen. See, I was just hitting it out here and knocking it down a little bit. Okay, so we got it tapped loose, so we're just slowly lowering it and just double checking that we don't have anything that's going to catch. We'll just get it lowered as much as we can with the jacks, and then we'll just drag it out from under here on some cardboard or something. Here's a view up from this side. See, we've got everything that we needed disconnected, and we didn't forget anything, so that's always good. So I've got a little roller. I think I'm actually going to put it on my roller dolly. Just roll it on out here. And we'll want to plug up that hole where that line goes on the power rack and pinion there. We don't want no dirt or anything getting in that, but I'm just going to drag it out here in the yard out of the way and probably clean it off before we put it back in. I'm just rolling it out with this mover's dolly. This actually doesn't weigh a whole lot. Okay, you can see we got a lot of room under here now. We're going to be supporting the engine while we're taking this loose over here, so we're eventually going to have to do that. Now the next thing I'm fixing to get on is these lines here. We're going to get those loose and it'll be draining. Okay, so I've got my 19. These are pretty tight. You got 2 washers. One of them will probably, you might want to do them one at a time depending on how big your drain pan is. We've got that washer you see on there, and there's one more behind this. And looks like we're going to get that. We're going to have to get that 10 right there. I didn't even notice that till just now. So just finish removing that. Okay, and these will do a lot of draining. We actually are going to blow some air through that. So there's that other washer. We're going to blow some air through those lines. It's very messy, so you want to get a bottle or jug or something, but we're going to blow as much of that old fluid out as we can. So the one we got left, this one right here. Really no way to get these confused. Okay, and see that one there, that washer actually fell off. So don't lose those. Okay, the next thing I'm going to get on is these 16s down here on the bottom part before we do anything else. I want to have all these lower bolts out first, and then I'm going to get the engine supported. So we're going to take this one, this one, this one, and this one here out. And once we get these out, we're going to support the engine here, and we'll go ahead and go up top and work from there. Okay, I want to point out at this point, as you're taking these out, number, because a lot of these are different, number them, put a number here, put a number on your bolt, so you know exactly where that bolt came from, and there's just no confusion later on or mix up. Okay, so we got all 4 of those out and numbered. Okay, so here's my setup for the engine support, and you can use just, you know, whatever you want, or jack stand or whatever, but I've just got some blocks here, as you can see, and we're just gonna leave that there and take the bolts. You can see them up here. We're going to start taking the bolts loose and working our way up to the top, and we'll leave the top ones in and get the lift over here, get it lowered down. We'll probably move these blocks over just a little bit more out of the way. Okay, that's a little bit better, a little more out of the way here, because I'm going to be lowering it down with my lift onto my little mover's dolly here. But anyways, it's starting to get dark, so we'll get back on it in the daylight. Okay, the next thing we're fixing to work on here is getting the starter out. You can see there's a bolt right under there, and then there's also one right down here. Now I can just come right over here beside this and get an extension, and we'll get those out. And I don't think this dipstick's going to be in the way, so I'm going to kind of leave it. And well, actually it is going to be in the way because of the hose here, probably. We'll see, because I was wanting to use this because this is real sturdy, and get a strap or something on it and hook it up to get another bolt over here as far as lowering it. So we may just leave that. So we're going to go ahead and get on this starter next. Okay, so we got our 16. We're getting on this top bolt on the starter. Okay, so we're just getting this lower bolt out here now. And we're just about ready to take the starter out. Okay, so we got the short bolt in the bottom, and we got this long bolt that's coming through the top. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and remove this. Okay, we're about to get on this 18 that's down here, going in this way. Okay, and these are going to be very tight. You're going to need an extended ratchet at the very least. Okay, so I'm just getting ready to get down here and get this 18. Now, the other ones are going to be up top, but we're going to go around to the back side and get the ones that are coming through from the engine side before we start on these up here. Now, before I remove these top two up here though, I'm going to go ahead and get my lift over here, and we're going to get hooked up to it in some manner, and then we'll kind of proceed from there. Okay, we're around the back side of the engine up. We got a 16 right up here. We got a 16 right here. And then we got this big 18 right here. Like I said, these will be pretty tight. Said I'm marking and numbering each one of these as I'm taking them out. Don't want to get them mixed up, because a lot of times you'll have different sizes. I've got those two loose. I'm going to get my 18 here. Go ahead and get this big one right here. Be careful with your crank wire there. Don't hit that. Alright, so got those loose. Get this 18 out first and get it labeled. So it's pretty easy going from here. Okay, now we're getting the 16s out. So just take the time to number them one at a time. Okay, so all those are out there. We're going to go ahead and go back up top, I think. Okay, yeah, I thought I remembered there being a bracket. There's some hoses, these heater hoses. We've got a bracket though. I don't think it's going to interfere with anything. It doesn't look like, so we're going to leave that. I think it's okay there. Okay, I'm fixing to get my lift on here now. We've only got 3 bolts left. We got that 18. And then come over here, we've got that 18 and 16 on this side. So those are the only ones that are holding at this point, and the motor mount. So we get the lift on there. We're gonna go ahead and probably start getting the motor mount or the transmission mount, and then we'll finish removing those last 3 bolts right there. Okay, I'm hooking my chain up, and I just wanted to show you, a couple ways you could run a chain or a strap around this, and there's some other various places and where you could get little bolts through or whatever. What I'm doing, just because it seemed like a good idea, I took a bolt out of one of these, and I put one that's just slightly a little bit longer and with a washer. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take this one out right here, put this longer bolt with a washer so I can run my chain. You'll see it here in a minute. Okay, so this is what this looks like. Like I said, there's numerous ways you can hook up to it. I don't even know how level this is going to be, but it's going to work. But we just got a hold of it there and there. I'm assuming most of the weight's going to be up there on the front. It's going to want to tilt forward, but we'll deal with it and we'll deal with it and get it out of the way. It wouldn't be the first time the torque converter fell out on me. But this seems like it's going to be the best, or just the quickest way for me to hook up to it for now because of all these hoses and stuff. So I'm going to get my lift over here now, and we'll get to work on this mount. Now, on top of having to remove all these bolts here for this, we're going to have to get this brace down here off of the transmission. You can see that that brace has got a couple of bolts down here, and I took this flap off to get it out of the way so I've got more visibility. We got a ground right here also. We need to get that removed and mark that as to where that goes. But other than that, so what it's gonna do is allow, with this brace out of the way, it's gonna allow room to shift the transmission over enough that we can get it out of the torque converter, or get it out of the engine there and be able to drop it down away from the flex plate. So that's the plan. So we're going to go ahead and get the lift over here now, and then we'll start working on taking all this other stuff off. Another tip, before you take this mount loose, go ahead and slightly break these 3 bolts up here loose, because they're going to be super tight. Just break them loose, that way it's not going to be so much trouble. Okay, I got my movers dolly down here. You see about how far of a distance that you have to go, and you just figure up how much slack you're going to need up here, you know, between dropping this down and here. I think this is going to work out. If not, I can lower the vehicle down a little bit just so I clear my boom here. But I'm going to get got this, and I'm going to get a little bit of a strap or something here to extend it out. Okay, so I've got a little tension on it here. We're going to go ahead and start taking these bolts out up here, and looks like we'll need to remove all of these, I think. I'm just going to start taking all of these out. Okay, the first one up, we got the nut, this 18 millimeter. Now I'm going to get on all of these 16s. I'm going to take all those out. Okay, and you got these on either side too. Got one back there. Probably best to take these out first so it's not putting any stress. Okay, we got to get this ground loose here. That's a 16. Okay, and I come from underneath to get that back bolt for that mount. Okay, so last one left is this one right here. Okay, now all those bolts are out, but this is still stuck. So I'm going to try to get the bolts, the 16s going into the transmission. Now I may have to get my ratchet wrench up in here to get to this one, but I'm going to go ahead and start removing all those and just take the whole assembly off. I don't know, it's probably just corroded on here or something. Okay, we're able to get that one loose, but we can't take it completely out yet because it's hitting right there. We're going to get on the lower one there now. Okay, I'm just working them out with my ratchet wrench. Let's say they won't come all the way out. There's not slack, but this is the last one, and this will probably drop down a little bit on my lift. Definitely don't be underneath it. And we're going to get this out and see what it's going to do here. Okay, there we have it loose. Now we'll see what's going on with this. See, it just seemed like it was kind of stuck a little bit. But now you can see with that out of the way, we got all kinds of room here. So all we got is our top 3 bolts, and we're getting ready to get those. The 2 18s and the 1 16 over there. Okay, I'm getting the 16 back here in the back. I just got the 2 18s. Okay, and there's the 18. Got that. And we're just getting ready to get this other 18 right here. And this is going to be loose. Now, I don't really care so much about the transmission, but I don't want it banging into the... I don't want it banging into my engine, and I also don't want that torque converter flying out. So I'm going to move it back cautiously and maybe stick some cardboard in there. And then I'm going to see if I can get it stable enough to put my clamp to keep that torque converter in. There's that one. Okay, now we should be all loose at this point. I'm going to start working this here. It seems like I'm still might be hung up. Let me double check. Okay, it is in fact loose. I had in a little bit of a bind there. And I think I need to lower it a little more to get a little stress off of it. We don't want too much slack. It's just a matter of working it off of those pins there. I'm just wiggling it. Okay, so basically I just need to move my lift back here. So let's go ahead and see. Okay, for some reason the torque converter is hung up, but we do in fact have it loose here, and I'm just getting ready to try to carefully lower it. I just wanted to give you a view of it from down here. I got a drip pan too, because we don't want that going everywhere. We do have it drained, but there's like quarts and quarts of fluid up in that torque converter and everywhere else. Every time you flip it, you get more fluid out of it. So anyway, I can still lower it down here. I think I've got room, so I'm just going to carefully start bringing it down. So hopefully I can work around this. I can get it low enough that I can work around this, I believe. In hindsight, I think that dipstick should have came off of there. Looks like I might be hung up. Okay, so there we got it loose. After you get it down so far, this below this frame here, this will just kind of go back, and even with the torque converter completely stuck on there, I still have room to get this on down here. As you can see, and we're just going to bring it down. Now we'll have to move it back a little bit here. We're just going to bring it down, set it on that mover's dolly. We're almost down on the dolly now. Okay, you can see we're almost down on it there. I'm just going to lower it a little more. Right, we'll just get a 2x4 or something on there to hold it kind of upright so it doesn't fall in the back. And just to show you, we've still got plenty of room up here. And I thought I was actually going to be getting close to this, but we still got plenty of room. So now we will work on getting that torque converter off. Not exactly sure why it's stuck on there. That was kind of what was hanging me up, because the torque converter shouldn't have been stuck. It should have come off there easily. So I got it on my mover's dolly. We can go ahead and get the lift out of the way, and we'll just roll this old transmission back up here into the garage. You definitely want to hang on to this old one, because you don't know, you know, I'm getting a used one. You don't know what's going to be broke on it. You don't know what bolts, parts, whatever you're going to need. So you got to hold on to it for a while and make sure that you've got everything that you need off the old transmission. I've had it happen more times than I can think of, where there was a part I had to go back and get. Okay, as you can see, we can easily slide this out through the side here and miss everything, even with the dipstick. I'm just going to push this over a little bit here. And we'll twist it, maybe twist it sideways a little bit. Alright, so we'll twist it back this way. Alright, come out of there, piece of cake. Okay, now I was working this torque converter off. I'm not really sure what's going on with it. It is wiggling off of here. It's just really stuck. So, anyways, it came out. It just seemed to be a little bit stuck in there. I don't know why. Well, right here, you can see some rust on that, so I always put grease on these, putting them back. Okay, then you look right in here, you can see that rust in there, so probably just a little bit of rust, corrosion, heat, whatever. It stuck it in there a little bit. It should have come out of there way easier than that. It should have just slid right out with the transmission. But we got it, no big deal. Okay, just wanted to give you a view of this with the transmission off. You can see these little locating pins, like 3/8. You got one up here. I prefer the bigger 3/4 1/2 inch. Those seem to be a lot easier to line up, but those work okay. But I'm still waiting on the transmission at this point. Surprisingly, I don't see any leakage from this rear seal here, so we're not going to mess with that any. And said I'm still just waiting on my transmission to come in. I'm just kind of running ahead a little bit, so as soon as we get that, we'll wheel it back under here. So once you get the subframe out from under here, it's pretty much a piece of cake, you know. Something, the motor's got a mount over there supporting it. All you need is something to hold the motor up. You could use blocks, you can use a big jack stand, whatever you got. Just it needs some kind of support while you get the transmission out. Okay, so we got our replacement transmission in here. This is supposed to have about 65,000 at the most on it. And everything was okay except the connector right here, as you can see, is broken off. Basically this is I don't know, something had to hit it pretty hard or it got damaged moving it, but it's kind of a big problem because this only removes from the inside. This is what it's supposed to look like. See this connector. Now this piece is pretty cheap. If you break this, it's cheap. The problem is getting in here to it. Now this actually, I don't even need this wire. This is off the old one. This is what you need. That plugs in to that harness, but it's only designed to be removed from the inside there. And you can see the O-ring that goes on it there. So that's a big problem. The only way to fix it is to remove the pan and get in there and take that valve body out. So that's what I'm going to be working on here. And we're just going to kind of get this up and drain. There's probably going to be at least 2 quarts of fluid in here, because that's what was in my old one over there. I done took it apart just to kind of see what I was looking at. Okay, so we got the pan off. The fluid is really nice and clean. You only see that with a really low mild one, but the fluid looks good. And I'm fixing to start. We don't have to take all of these out. We're just going to take out certain ones, and there's going to be more fluid, probably another quart of fluid come out of here. So I've got the pan under it here, and maybe once I get that out, I'll lay it down on its side. But if I try to do that, it's going to make a big mess, so I'm trying to get all the fluid out that I can here. Okay, so you can see this is the wire that runs up to this connector. We have to remove this clip and push that back through that side. Now, we're not going to take all of these out. I think it's these 5 here, or yeah, these 5, and then we've that a couple, I think, here, and then we've got a couple more down here. I believe that may be it. Besides, this this nut here has to come off. We have to put this back, because you don't want to take any of the rest of these out and disassemble the entire valve body. There's springs and little check valves and everything in there. Never get that stuff back together. So that's what we're going to do, and then we're just going to slide it down, and I'll be able to easily get up there and get to that connector. So I know you won't have to probably worry about any of this, at least I hope you don't, but thought I would cover this anyways. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start taking those out and carefully lower this down. Okay, so when you're moving this around, it's a good idea to have you something to hold this torque converter in, or it's going to try to fall out on you. So I have a lot of these. You know, usually they come with the transmission, but this one didn't. But I'm fixing to flip it over on its face here, and since I think I've got most of the fluid out, and work on it from there. Okay, you can see more about it here. I've got the filter. The first thing I took off was the filter here. I've just got these right here out. I've got some in here, and pretty sure we got these 2 here as well. Okay, so we got it figured out. I think I counted up 12 bolts, but there's 12 of these longer ones. So we got these 5 here, and then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's probably, well, I was counting the shorter bolts, but there was one shorter one right here. I wasn't for sure if it came out, because all the rest of them were a little bit longer. I just didn't want to take out the wrong one, but there was a shorter one right there that needed to come out as well, along with this nut and the little device that goes in this. So we're going to carefully go ahead and remove this now, and I'm going to have to. So we got the wire still attached here. What I'm going to do is get that clip off and push it through. Okay, so that part just pushes in. So as I pull this down, we'll be able to remove that. But I'm going to have to really keep my eyes open for any. Okay, so that's what we don't want to be losing stuff. And so I'm going to carefully pull this back while I'm pushing that connector down there. It won't come out until I get the majority of this out of the way. Okay, I had to put the camera down a second. I just wanted to be absolutely sure there wasn't going to be no little spring or something and I wasn't going to be paying attention. So we've got the valve body set in here. I actually had to disconnect these wires. It slips over this, so I had to have these disconnected. But with those disconnected, we can push this through. You can see we can get this broken, and I'm just going to reuse this connector and put this end off my other one back on there. We're just going to slip it right back up in place there. Okay, and say if you need one of these, I've googled these, they're only like $10 for this piece. So, you know, the piece itself, just putting a light dab of, so this fluid is really clean up in here. Okay, so the connector, you see it has this piece that won't allow you to pull it through, so you know it's there for a reason. And we're just going to feed this right back in here. It should be a nice snug fit. I may have to put a little more of that fluid on there. Okay, I didn't have that nub turned to the back. It actually prevents it from, because it prevents it from turning and everything. So once it's turned back there, it pops in fairly easy. So the only thing we got to do, just get our little clip back on there, and that's just to keep it from pushing in, which I don't think you could push it in anyways because it doesn't have room in there to push it in. So we got that in place. We just got to reconnect these to our valve body, and this should be pretty straightforward. I didn't, and I'm going to have to get that one piece cleaned up and slip back on here before I forget about it. Okay, I slipped it back on that stud, and I'm just pushing it back on there. And I'm also holding this with my finger. I don't want it to fall out. And we've got an alignment peg down here. Once I get, we've got a couple of alignment pegs. So once I get it into alignment here, it'll just set right into place. We're going to get a bolt in it here. Now this is the only oddball right here. The rest of them were the same length. But you know, if they were different, you would definitely want to mark each one of them. So we got it set in place. I'm going to work on getting some bolts in here. Okay, I just went around and tightened those to 75 inch-pounds, all the small bolts. You don't want to get too carried away with those. There's one stripped right here. I guess it was just previously over tightened, unless somebody has been in here before, I don't know. So I'm going to get this reconnected. Okay, for some reason this doesn't want to go back on here. Okay, there we go. And this slips down in here. And that goes back in there. Okay, so now I've got to get my little arm here. And it's got that locking washer. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten. I'm not going to get that real tight either. Okay, we've got us another filter. About to get this in place. I'll pop that O-ring in. This said, I wouldn't go more than 70 inch-pounds. These things are real easy to strip. Alright, all I got to do is get my gasket and pan on here, and we're all finished up. That gasket wasn't leaking before. I'll probably just use the original. I'm just going to clean this pan out, and we'll be able to actually start getting this back into the car. Okay, so I'm just getting ready to roll this under the car here. I got it back together. Still got my stop here in place, so that's not falling out. And to show you again where I hooked up to this spot right here, and then this one over here with the square, and just put a little bit longer of a bolt in there, and that's what I'm going to be lifting it up with. But now went ahead, I took the dipstick off because it was getting in the way of the hose, so I went ahead and took that off and plugged the hole off there. Okay, so we got it in place, just rolled it through the side. Now went ahead and got my torque converter, where the bolt's going to go in. I've got it lined up with this up here, the hole up here, so I won't have to turn it once I slide in place. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get my lift over here, but I need to go ahead and take my brace that was keeping the torque converter in. I need to go ahead and take that out so it's not in my way. Okay, so here's a view from up top, and so all we got to do is get the lift over here and get on our chain. I'm not even going to use the strap this time. You can see the hole down there is at the bottom, and I've also got the torque converter in alignment with that, so I shouldn't have to move it much. But if I do, I'll go through where the starter hole is, and I'll gently move that torque converter around. Now, I went ahead and greased the let me show you. Went ahead and greased that. We don't want that seizing up in there. That's why I had trouble getting it off. So I went ahead and put grease on that. Also put grease where the alignment pegs are going, just so it'll go in place easier. I just always do that. So we're ready to go ahead and lift it up here and start bolting it up. Okay, so I'm hooked up to it. Like I said, the first time I used a strap, but I didn't need it. I was just kind of overdoing it. There's plenty of slack here. I probably got like a couple of foot of chain, just looped going down to give me slack. So I've got hooked up to it here. Said you see where I hooked the chain. It's worked out fine getting it out, so it should work out just fine getting it back into place and missing everything. But we're going to go ahead and start lifting it up. I gotta take that brace off real quick, and we're going to go ahead and start lifting it up, and we'll get the alignment pegs into their place. You can see alignment peg right there. It's like a 3/8, and right up here. So we got those, and then we got the little center nub that's going to go in there. And once we get those, it'll just pretty much fall right into place. And it seemed to be pretty level getting it out, so it shouldn't be real hard getting this to go back up here into place. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start lifting it. I want to make sure I'm not banging the I might be a little bit too close. Sorry, you're going to hear the air compressor. Okay, so we've about got it up here where we need it. It's tilted a little bit this way, but overall, I mean, it's really level to where I need it to be to get the bolts and stuff in. So I think I'm going to try to work on one and maybe getting one of the bolts in the top, and then we're going to kind of just let it ease down a little bit maybe. And I think I'm going to try that. We'll see what's going to happen here. Okay, this is working out actually real easy. I've started with this top bolt, threaded in by hand. I kind of looked from the side here, watched my alignment dowel, and then I just kind of shifted this a little bit. It's not perfectly, you know, it's not going to be perfectly in alignment, so I shifted it enough to get it on the alignment peg, and I got this one. You see how far I got that one with my fingers. Just finger tighten it. Don't even think about tightening it with a ratchet until you know it's going to go. So I got the one over there, you see, that's labeled B, and all I need to do is get over there and start tightening that one up with my fingers. And if I have to, I can shift it. I can lift this and tilt it a little bit while it's on the lift. It's not real hard. But if it doesn't line up and go with my fingers, then I will shift it and do what I need to do, or I may have to even lower it, you know, depending on the location of it there. Okay, with those loosely into place, I'm going to come back here and get one of these started. Medium Loctite on all these. So we'll go ahead and get that finger tightened. Okay, so I'll just tighten up right here where it says 5. That's the one that's actually by that dowel pin right there. So once you got the one up over top where I had labeled B, and you have this one, you pretty well got it beat. So I'm just going to go ahead and go around and put all the ones medium Loctite that I've got numbered, and just start putting those back in. But said this actually went really smooth. The main thing is, make sure you get it on your alignment pegs. You know, make sure that you don't go to forcing any bolts. If you can't start them by hand, then just leave it alone. It's not lined up right, something's wrong. Okay, we've got everything. I kind of just got it resting on my blocks. This is not really holding it, because I wanted to get these torqued up, but I went 45 on the big bolts and 35 on the smaller 16s. So we got Loctite, so we got them torqued. So the next thing we're probably going to do is go ahead and get this mount back on over here, and we'll be able to get the lift out of the way. And we'll just probably get on our subframe. It's going to be the next biggest task. Now, I did get this apart where it was stuck in here. I took and just used the shoulder of that nut in my socket and beat it out of there after using some WD-40 on it. I'm looking for, I got it over here. Okay, so yeah, I stuck it over here, but yeah, it's like splined and had rust and stuff, and whatever reason I had to beat that thing to get it off of there. So anyways, we got it separate, so it'll be easier to put that back. We're going to Loctite that as well. So as soon as we get let me show you the right. You definitely want to come in here and make sure that you got that. That's what I was talking about. I made sure both those are lined up, and that's fine right there. I can bump the either the torque converter, or I can move that flex plate and get that into alignment. So we're making some pretty good progress here. Okay, this is the first piece we're going to put on. We got our 3 bolts, and we're going to just get that back in place right here, and then we'll get the other piece on there. I guess that's going to be the way to do it. Okay, so we're just tightening these up. So I'm using medium Loctite on everything. Got one more on the back side here that I'm putting in there. You can't see it from this angle. Can't really get my torque wrench in here at the moment, so I would do 35 on those. So either I got a choice, I lower it down and torque them, or I just snug them up nice and tight and not worry about it. And I'm thinking I'm just going to snug them up. I can get to the bottom one, but I can't get my wrench or my torque wrench in here to get the other ones without having to drop it down and everything, and I don't feel like doing all that. Okay, I put a little white lithium before I put that one piece back in place. Hopefully it doesn't get stuck on me this time. I'm going to put some medium Loctite and start getting these 4 bolts. Right, and we got the one goes in here. We got one more in the back. It goes back up in here. Okay. Right, now I got my 16. Let's start snugging all these down. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and torque these down to 35. One more. Okay, we got our white lithium. Put a little on there as well. Let's see if we can see. We need to come up some more, but it looks like it's going to line up real nice. Let's bring it up a little bit here. This nut here, self-locking. And we got our Loctite. And drop that one. Let's try again. I will actually be glad to get this lift out of the way. Okay, so just got to get that back one in. Right, so we're going to snug these down. I had to push this over into alignment. It wasn't wanting to line up on those back ones. Now I'm going to torque these down to 35. Said I've got Loctite on them as well, and we're going to snug that nut up there next after we torque these. I'm trying to remember, I think that's an 18. I've slept since then. Alright, so I'm going to get these here torqued, and then we'll get that 18 torqued down to about 35 to 40. This is indeed an 18. You want to make sure that you got it lifted enough where you go to threading it down there. You know, if you only got like one thread, you might strip the thread. So go ahead and torque this down. I think I'm going to go about 40 on this. I think it can handle it. Alright, I got my torque wrench. Alright, so now we can go ahead and get the blocks out from underneath. Alright, so let's go ahead and get these out of the way while we got the lift. Yeah, it may have been up high enough anyways, I suppose, but just to be on the safe side. Right, we'll go ahead and get this lift. Okay, now we're just getting the lift back out of the way here. Okay, now we got our two long bolts we used to lift this, and this actually worked out really good as far as having it to the level I needed it. It usually never works out like that. I just got lucky. But if you hook up to it the way I did with a chain and get your loop centered, it should work out really good. I'll have to measure this chain overall and see how long it is. It doesn't have to be as heavy duty as that one. Okay, we got our short. Make sure to lock tight. And then we got this one. The longer one goes right here. And we're going to go ahead and we'll torque these 35. I have snapped these before. I think it's more the quality of the bolt more than anything. You just don't want to overdo it. You don't want to strip stuff. I worry more about stripping than anything. Okay, I'm about to put this shifter bracket back in place. Okay, so we got my Loctite on my bolts. And then that little vent tube is going to reconnect right there if it ain't broke. Right, so we got those tight. We'll get our clip over here. Push that in from the back, put our clip back in. Alright, so we got to get that back into place. Alright, we're going to get this. I like to try to line. I can see on this where it was lined up previously, and this thing is square. So when it goes in there, it doesn't turn. I just try to line up where the nut was previously. We'll go ahead and snug that down. Okay, so shifter cable is back on. Okay, and you can go through here also to line up, because this torque converter will turn. You can use that to line up to put your torque converter nuts in there. I think I'm going to do that before I put this starter back in. I was fixing to put the starter in. I think I'm going to go ahead and put those in and get that out of the way first. Okay, I got my medium Loctite, and this is lined up pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and get it started by hand. And let me get my ratchet here. Okay, I got my 14 here. What I like to do is I'll snug it all the way up, and then I'll back it off just a little bit where it's loose. That way the others will line up. Just back it off where it's not tight. Then we'll go ahead and rotate the crank around out here. Okay, let's go ahead and rotate this around. Now, because I don't have my torsion mount in, this thing's rocking and stuff from side to side. That's alright. Right, so I'm going to get the rest of these in, and we're going to torque these down probably about 35 foot-pounds. Okay, so we're just going through here and torquing each of these at 35, and said you got to kind of hold the crank out there a little bit too. Okay, so we're getting ready to replace this. This seal's kind of messed up, but it'll be alright. Got some Loctite on these little tins. And go ahead and get these snugged up. And I think we'll go ahead and next when we put that starter in place. Okay, so I'm getting ready to slip the starter back in. And we got the long bolt, and that's the one that actually goes and helps hold the transmission. And we're going to get that going in the top first. And I got the little small one. Put that down under here. And I think after this we may get onto the subframe. Really not a whole lot up here. It's even going to be left. Yeah, I'll need to get my dipstick back in. I got it plugged off down there right now. I need to get that in. Definitely glad that I'm putting this starter in first, because that gets right in the way. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and torque this to 45 and 35 on that small one on the bottom. Okay, here we go. 45 on this top 16. And then we'll tighten that 16 on the bottom to 35. Alright. Okay, so I'm on the lower. We got that to 35. So starter is in. Alright, so I'm putting the dipstick back in before I mess around and forget it. Alright, I was going to get this ground back in place here too. Get that 16 tightened up. Alright, so I got my little $12 Harbor Freight dolly. We're just rolling it under the vehicle here and the subframe, and I'm going to get the jacks on each side, and we're going to kind of lift it back up into place here. Okay, you'll notice this conical part here, this nub, this goes up in and kind of lines it up back here. Now, of course, we have to have this piece goes under it, so we can't forget we got to put that on before we put the bolt through that. So the back ones have the nubs to kind of help line it up, whereas the front one just kind of sets in place. What I usually like to do is get one corner, and then I'll go over like get the corner up in the front and go from there. And the most critical part is getting this to go into place easily. Now you notice I put a mark here, but this plastic piece, as long as you don't take that off, it's going to go exactly back. That's just made where you put it back to where it was. So it goes like in between that collar and lines it back up. So I'm going to put some grease on this though. This thing was seized up and rusty, and I could not get it off. I've never seen one as bad as this one, so I'm going to grease that up real good before I even think about putting this back into place. I had a lot of trouble, and I done cleaned that collar off up here a little bit, so I don't think I'm going to have the trouble And you want to make sure that you've not been turning that steering wheel too. And I did take the time to clean this up, by the way. It was really dirty and I cleaned it up real good. Okay, so we got it halfway close. We're going to go ahead and start lifting it up here. And we'll just try to lift it evenly on both sides. Okay, so I'm making sure I got it halfway close, and I'm watching that collar, and I'm going to try to get that aligned and slipped on before I do anything else here. And I've just kind of got it close right now to where the bolts are going to go, and just slowly going up with it on each side. Okay, so just to show you, that went into alignment pretty good. So just as long as that plastic goes in the center there, it's not twisted, it should be into alignment. If not, then we got to come back and redo it. So hopefully that's good. And we're going to go ahead and get that bolt in there. I'm going to blow that white lithium out of that hole, and we'll put some high strength Loctite on that bolt that goes in there. We're going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so I'm getting ready to get this 12mm bolt in, and I've got my high strength Loctite. I said this stuff's not for the faint of heart. It does come back loose, but it doesn't come loose easily. So I'm going to go ahead and get that. I've got my long extension over here, and then we'll snug it up. Alright, so here we go. I'm just going to tighten this down. You could probably go 35 or more. These bolts are really strong, but I'm just tightening it, getting it really tight. Right. Okay, I'm working on this passenger corner over here first, and I made sure the nub was lined up, and I kind of got the bolt started a little bit. It looks like I'm going to knock the camera over, but anyways, I'm just starting this one here a little bit, getting that nub into place, and then I'm going to go up to the front corner over there on the driver's side. And this is going real easy. I don't want it tight by no means. I just want it started good, and that's probably good enough. Okay, up at the driver's corner, this is down too low. However, I've got that back corner over there. I'm going to bring my jack from back there and slide it up here and push this on up. Okay, because the engine, this mount was out, the engine was twisted, so I had to shove the engine a little bit to push it up back there. Okay, I was actually just pushing this up here by hand, and I got the bolt started by hand already, and we're going to go ahead and start tightening it down. Okay, so I'm just finished snugging this one down. Once we get this corner, the other one, or the other two, should go in place real easy. It's really not that difficult. And this is not real heavy. You don't want to, be lifting on it a whole lot, but you can lift this front end up once you have the back in place. I'm going to finish tightening this down. I'm going to get it completely tight, and I'm going to move to the other side on the front, I think. And I did label this to which side it came from, because sometimes bolts get messed up and the threads. I want to make sure it's going back into the same spot it came from, and it's likely to go a lot smoother. Right, so we're going to snug this one down, and we're going to get on that one final one over there where my yellow jack's at, and we'll have this. And we just got a few things to connect. We got to get the cooler line, or the power steering line, in the return line up here, and we're all set on this. I did take the knuckles out because there's nothing, just to take them out of the way, just to make it a little easier when pushing this up into place without those being right there in the way, hitting on the control arm. I can slip them on easily after the fact. I'll probably wait until after I get the CV axles in. Okay, so we're getting the final. And I've got the jack out of the way already because this is being held by the others. Now there is the bolts you got to think about. There's 4 bolts that go in the back of this piece here, and you want to get those in before you go to tightening this big bolt down, giving it the final torque, because then you'll have to go back and take it loose to line those up. So I'm going to go ahead and get some medium Loctite on those and get those in place. Alright. And you know, I want to say, in terms of like removing transmissions, this car has been one of the easier ones. This went really smooth. And so far we haven't had any issues to speak of other than a broken connector on the transmission. Everything's went well. All right, I'm going to tighten these back here to 35 foot-pounds. I'm going to finish snugging this a little bit more though before I do that. Okay, I got my 16 here. We'll go ahead and snug these up a little bit more. Alright, so just got to finish tightening all these down. Okay, I got my torque wrench set to 110 foot-pounds. I've done got them pretty snug with my extended ratchet. Right, so let's get to all the others. Okay, we're going to get on these 16s. I got it set to 35. We already got all 4 of the body bolts torqued down. So just got to get these on both sides. Alright, I got clean transmission fluid on here, getting ready. I cleaned the end of the CV, getting ready to pop it in. Sometimes I can just do this and get it to go right in place. Sometimes I have to use my rubber mallet. So there's the drivers. Alright, we got our passenger CV axle. We're just slipping it in. I'm going to go underneath to make sure I'm getting it straight into the transmission. Again, we got clean CVT fluid on the seal. Okay, remember we got this little plate that goes on here too that holds this. Okay, so when putting this passenger CV axle, just slip that so that bracket just goes that way. You can see that notch. So we put some Loctite and got those back. I think I'm going to go ahead and get that motor mount underneath. We'll go ahead and get that. It's about to get dark. We may go ahead and slip this back on here since we're right here at it. Alright, we'll get that back on, and instead of going there and get that center mount, and probably going to call it a night. We may be able to get our knuckles back on maybe. Okay, so we're getting ready to put this bolt in. I've got Loctite, so we can shift this slightly to get it to line up. We're just going to kind of twist the engine here, get where I can get a hold of it somewhere. I can't really, but it's usually real easy to move this. Alright, so got our, let's see, what is this, an 18? Yep, 18 it is. Alright, so we're going to get this here in, and hadn't even really thought about the exhaust yet. Probably get on that in the morning or sometime tomorrow, but I think we can go ahead and get these knuckles on. It's pretty easy. So I'm going to go ahead and torque this down to 45 foot-pounds. Okay, I had not forgot about this one either. I accidentally took that loose when I was taking it out, and I'm going to torque it to 45 foot-pounds here as well. Okay, before we get the knuckle on, I'm going to douse these down with lithium. It'll just come apart so much easier the next time. Alright, so I'm going to see how much trouble this thing wants to give me today. I'll try to get the ball joint on. This is actually seems to be more difficult. Alright, there we go. Alright. I just got to push it down and get it into the knuckle there. Just slip it under there. And these are self-locking. Just push down on that a little bit to get it to line up. And we got one more. Push in. Alright, we just have to hold those on each side. Okay, I'm getting ready to get this pinch bolt. Got a little bit of Loctite on it. Push that down some. We'll have to, I said, we'll have to hold this on both sides as well as we're tightening this up. These are going together very easy. Right, and I'm going to put a light dab of that on there. And if you hammer this down here, it makes it easier to get the bottom nut on to keep it from spinning. Okay, so we'll get our little ABS. Probably going to put a little Loctite on that as well. Right, we'll go ahead and get our axle nut on. I'm probably going to get the other side just kind of put together, and we're going to start torquing a lot of this stuff in the daylight. Still got the rotor and the brake caliper, and we got to get things torqued down, but other than that, it's going together real easy. Okay, and I was getting this 18mm here for the stabilizer link. I'll go ahead and snug that up. Okay, we're going to start with torquing these. We're going to go 105, and we'll have to hold this side over here. Okay, our ball joint pinch bolt, I'm going to go 46. I've got my 18 to hold it. Our stabilizer link, we're going to go 35 on this. And on this I just tightened with a 1/4 inch ratchet. I wouldn't go more than probably 70 inch-pounds on that. We'll torque this when we get the wheel on and get the weight on the vehicle. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get the rotor on. Okay, we're getting ready to slip the brake back on here. Okay, so we're going to get these bolts back in here. Okay, so I got these, I'm going to tighten these 22s down to 105 foot-pounds here. Right now we'll just get on that lower one. Okay, we're going to slip this back in. It kind of has a little notch there. Just push it in from the back side to that little notch. Goes where it's supposed to go. You may have to twist it to get it just right. And then push that. Oh my goodness. Okay, this is really tight. I'm gonna have to get something and bump it over there with. Okay, I just tapped it on there with a hammer. Okay, back here behind the subframe, just getting ready to slip the power steering line back in right there. We're gonna go ahead and start snugging that up. Okay, so I've got my 14. We're just making sure, we made sure that we had it threaded a little bit by hand, make sure it's straight. So we're going to finish snugging this down. We'll get over here to this bracket for this line. And I forgot about the transmission cooler lines up in the front there. I should have had those hooked up before I put the subframe. But I just now had thought about them, so I think once we get this secured, we're going to go up there and work on getting those. Alright, so that's tight. Give it a little bit more. Okay, so here we are tightening these 10 millimeters back up here. Okay, so just getting ready to reclip that. Okay, I'm going to get this connector. And we'll just snap it back in here. Okay, so I got both of my little washers on. Getting ready to put this first line back up in place. Would have been easier to have done these with the subframe down, but I wasn't even thinking about it. Here, this has got a 10 millimeter bracket there for it as well. Okay, I'm up top getting this other one, and once I get this snugged up, I'm going to get the little 10 millimeter there. Okay, so we've got the little bracket bolt there for that one line. I'm just going to feel down there and get it in place. Okay, we're about to get this exhaust in place. Now this end down here has got a gasket. This end's got a ring. If that falls off, put it back on there. And I'm armed with my anti-seize here. We're going to go ahead and get this doctored up right here before we go any farther. Said if you the good thing about it, if you have to work on the car again after you've had it apart once, it's never going to be as bad, or you're at least making it easy on someone else. Because these were extremely stuck, but I did get them loose without breaking them, which is a plus. Okay, so we're going to get back here and get those back ones. Alright. Guess I kind of globbed it on there. Okay, and there's the gasket. It's still on there. You can see it moving. We're just going to reuse it. Alright, I'm getting ready to slip this back on here first. Alright, I'm getting ready to slide the front on here and get it lined up. So make sure your ring doesn't fall off. Okay, I'll go ahead and start putting these self-locking nuts on here. I'm going to torque these down to about 35 foot-pounds. I'm just going to run these down by hand, and then I'm going to get back here and put these bolts in this brace back here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get this started in our brace here. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get this connector for the O2 while we're here at it, and it's handy. It's kind of turned sideways on me here. Alright, so we got that fastened. We'll loop that back in there. Okay, now we're ready to get this back here, and we're going to get our torque wrench and torque these to 35. Once I get these on, get this one and the front one. Okay, so just getting ready to put this little brace back in here, and I think we're going to finally be all finished up under here, at least for now. So it's got to get these 4 bolts, 2 on each side. Okay, and I've got a new cotter pin for this tie rod here. I'm going to go ahead and get this on. Okay, now we're going to get to work on this wire harness. So we got the car lowered back down a little bit, so we're going to work on getting everything reconnected here. Okay, I started with clipping this back on here, and then I ran this part of the wire right through here, and it's got snaps, but a lot of them's broken. Like there's supposed to be one right here, and there's one that comes down here, and you can see how this is routing to this sensor, and then this is going to go back up here and connect to our starter. And then we've got the one for the valve body or TCM or whatever that screws on down there. And we'll go ahead and get this tape off of here. So this thing is real easy. It pretty much will only go one way. You got to get it turned the right way. Once you got it on there where it kind of slips down a little bit, you just start twist locking it on there. But there's a certain, I think that's the arrow right there, that you just start twisting this part of it, and it should just lock itself right down. You could put another mark there if you wanted, but it basically just goes right there. There's a little indentation. I'll show you. That's where it ends up at, and that's locked down nice and tight. Okay, now the neutral switch connector is going to run around here, and then it's got a place that it clips in there. You can see that right there. It's where it clips. We're going to connect this first. Make sure that that's snapped, and then snap that back in place. Okay, if you look back here, you can see this connector right here. I got to get down here and get this one. I got taped up, and we're going to reconnect that right there. Okay, so there we have that one. Okay, so we're going to get the big wire over here and slip that on to the starter. We already got the small wire, tighten down the 8mm. Okay, and this is a 12mm nut, by the way. So we'll just snug that up. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get this back in place. Now there's a couple of little 8mm that hold this wire harness over here. Right, now we got a 13. We'll just go ahead and snug this on up a little more. Get this side, we'll switch over there and tighten that other one up, and we'll have this part of the bracket done. Right, I've got these 8mm. We're going to pull this harness up here and fasten it down here. Okay, I was calling those 8s. That's a 10mm head. Okay, we're going to get this little battery tray back in. It goes under this one connector over here, attaches to it. It looks like I've got okay. Okay, I haven't got those fastened down just yet. I'm getting ready to situate the computer. I have to have this one bolt here out of the way. And these on this side just kind of slip under the bolts. If you can get them to slip under there. Doesn't look like that's going to work. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and start tightening all of these 13s up here now. Probably going to get the battery and the tray at least set in here, because it's actually quite difficult to set it into place with everything in. It's just such a tight fit the way that it's designed here. So I'm just going to go back and double check all of these. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start getting these connectors here. I've got them all labeled, so there's no confusion. All right, so there's the first one. Okay, now I'm starting to do this in the wrong order. This number 4 that wraps around has to come around here first, best I remember. Okay, now this one has to set down on to these areas, and it's also got a bolt over here, 10 millimeter. Doesn't appear to be lining up. Okay, and then this one's got the 10. Get that locked down right there. The other one clipped in back there. Now this also has a wire that goes up over the top of it as well. Okay, so we're starting with this lower. And we got one over on the side over there that I did initially, and we'll have all of that computer. Okay, then we got our power cable that just lays down here on this, and these clip down. Okay. And then we also got the connectors that go under the bottom here. Okay, we got our little battery tray in. It only goes one way there. Make sure we pull our strap back up here. We're going to go ahead and set this battery in. Okay, so I'm just ready to set this air box back in and get it back down onto its little grommets there. And I think we're going to get the transmission fluid in here next. Okay, so I just went ahead and reconnected that and reconnected this hose here, and we're going to work on getting our fluid in. I'm going to start with at least 7 quarts. I believe the system holds 9. There could be a little bit in there, but I'm going to start with 7. Okay, and this is what we're going to be using. And this is for the NS3. And I've used this before. I got like a couple cases of this. I got this from Amazon. It's a lot cheaper, and it works really good. So I'm going to get 7 quarts of this in here. We'll kind of check it for leaks, and then we're going to hopefully get it cranked up here before it starts raining. Okay, so almost got 5 quarts in it here. I may have to crank it up here and circulate some of this through, because I know it's pretty empty. And this is the 5th one here. We may like crank it up and circulate it and add the other two. Okay, and before I forget, we got to add this power steering fluid back. And I'm just using regular power steering fluid. But I'm sure we'll have to top this off and work the air out. Okay, we got the negative reconnect. We're going to go ahead and crank it up. Okay, we got it cranked up here. I got the cap off the power steering, kind of getting the air out. I've got 7 quarts in it. I'm going to warm it up a little bit and check it here in a second, just see where we're at. Okay, it's just slowly running it through some gears here to help circulate this fluid. Okay, and it's not real warm, but it's barely on the end there, if it'll focus. I'm thinking, you know, we may need to get another quart in here, or at least to start with a half a quart. Okay, so I went ahead and I got 8 quarts in here. I think I'm going to go ahead while I'm at it and get the wheels on, and I'm going to put a couple lugs so I can get the weight down and start torquing these axle nuts. Okay, so the only problems I've run into so far is that the pan has just a slight leak. Against my better judgment, I didn't RTV this thing, so I'm going to have to come back and revisit this. And these banjo bolts up here, which I never see these things leak, the one over here on the right is just not going to stop leaking. I don't know what. It's just got a, you know, it's just a slight leak. But I don't know why, because usually these things never ever leak. So I'm thinking that that face on that must have got damaged or something, because there's really no reason this should be leaking. I've tried tightening it and everything, changed the washer, changed the bolt, and it's still got a slight leak. It's not much, but it's just annoying. So anyways, okay, I've got my 32. I'm going to go ahead and torque these axle nuts to 129 foot-pounds. Right, and we'll have to get the wheel back off here, and we'll put that cotter pin in there. Okay, we got the wheel back off. We're getting ready to try to get this cotter pin back through here again. It's kind of bent on me. Okay, we got it straightened back out. Okay, we got our wheel back on. We're going to go through and torque these to 100 foot-pounds. And we'll go ahead and take it for a test drive here in a minute. Right, we can go ahead and pop our little cap back in place. Okay. Okay, we did go ahead and reattach these tins. This right here. Okay, so here we are taking it down the road, and it seems like it's doing real good so far. And it really gets up to speed pretty quick. So the little bolt leak, not a big deal. It's just barely seeping there, and I'm going to try to do something with that. And as far as the pan goes, not really a big deal either. I'm just going to take it off and use some RTV. I kind of was hoping that the gasket would be sufficient, because it looked like it was in good shape, but I should have known better and just replaced it, or used the RTV. So it's doing real good. Everything seems to work on the car, and it really wasn't that bad. It wasn't that hard to replace this transmission. And really, the CVTs are really smooth. I know they have a lot of problems, but the transmissions are really smooth, and they seem like they really get up to speed really quick. So anyways, the transmission, I paid $1,200 for the CVT transmission. All these transmissions are expensive just because they're in demand. Probably didn't spend more than, I would say, 4 days. You know, wasn't really, you know, working that hard at it either. And even replacing that connector didn't slow me down a lot. So really pretty easy to get this out of this car. You know, once the subframe's out, like I said, it's pretty simple from there. And not a whole lot of removal. You know, compared to some, not a whole lot of wiring and stuff to remove. And other than just, you know, I should have RTV'd the pan, but I was in a hurry and wanted to, you know, get it running. I didn't think it was going to be a problem, but I was having my doubts. But we'll go back and get that. It's not a big deal. And they've got gaskets, but if I'm going to do that, and I'll just put RTV. So anyways, it's doing really good. Just wanted to show you this going down the road, and it'll really get up to speed, pick up speed really good, really quick. Okay, so we're going to get out here and check this transmission fluid. Okay, so it's really not that bad. It's a little bit above that second hatch, and it's supposed to be down below that, but you can always pop one of those lines off. You get too much, but you definitely want to make sure you got enough. But I've got it a little bit above, but I'm going to be fixing that pan anyways. But you could pop a line off or just drain a little bit out of there and get it where you need it. So see, I checked it again. It's still a little bit above that second hatch there. Alright, so that's going to do it on replacing the transmission in this 2012 Nissan Altima. I hope you liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Please feel free to leave a comment below. And as always, I invite you to subscribe. Thank you for watching.